All right. Thank you for staying with us on our special coverage of by-elections 2025. But even as we keep an eye on what is happening across the country, a quick update from the Senate. The Senate has resolved to probe the impeachment of Nyamira Governor Amos Nyaribo in plenary sessions scheduled for the 3rd and the 4th of December 2025. On Thursday, the Senate convened to consider the charges against Governor Nyaribo. A motion by Kericho Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, who is also the majority leader, seeking to establish a special 11-member committee to handle the case, failed to garner the required support during a special sitting held this afternoon. This latest development comes just a day after the Nyamira County Assembly impeached the governor, with 23 out of 31 MCAs voting in favor of the motion. Do you mind if I just go again?
Yes, please go ahead.
The Senate has resolved to probe the impeachment of Nyamira Governor Amos Nyaribo in plenary sessions scheduled for the 3rd and the 4th of December 2025. On Thursday, the Senate convened to consider the charges against Governor Nyaribo. A motion by the Kericho Senator, who is also the majority leader, Aaron Cheruiyot, seeking to establish a special 11-member committee to handle the case, failed to garner the required support during a special sitting held this afternoon. The latest development comes just a day after the Nyamira County Assembly impeached the governor, with 23 out of 31 MCAs voting in favor of the motion.
Well, it's a matter again before the Senate just after it dealt with the Isiolo matter of Governor Abdi Guyo. Fred, back to the day's events and the by-elections. We are talking about 22 electoral units, 24 of course, but 2, there will be no contest. Basically 15 ward by-elections, 6 constituency, 290 in 2027, and 1 Senate, 47 in 2027. For the new commission, how important is this, other than also the political class, whose impact will be short-lived, because by the weekend, one party of the political aisle will carry the bragging rights. But how about the IEBC?
I think, Ayub, the term important is too inadequate to qualify what is a line and the task that IEBC is having, because they have to get it right. They have no choice. Because, like we have said before, these by-elections are moving us to 2027, and considering the fact that we are having a new commissioners in office, as much as we've been having the secretariat, but it is the first time they are interacting, with these matters elections. And if you look at, as much as we've not had an opinion poll to give us the rating of IEBC in the eyes of the public, but it doesn't need any research for you to know that the rating of IEBC in the eyes of the ordinary member of the public is not that high. And that is why we are having a lot of violence and kind of sentiments, such as the ones you were hearing yesterday from the former deputy president Rigiji and other politicians. When you hear them speak about infiltration and interference with IEBC, it tells you that if things are not done right, then these are the kind of sentiments that we are likely to hear and see even as we are moving to 2027, and they are not good for the country. Unfortunately, we human beings, sometimes we want good things, but we are not willing to pay the price for them. We are as human beings, sometimes we want to go to heaven, but we don't want to die. We want to live long, but we are afraid of growing old. We want a clean IEBC, but look at the process of making it. We always interfere every now and again. We want those who are friendly to us. We want those who are coming from our communities. We want those who are our friends. And the moment they get in there, we begin seeing them as this one is close to a certain governor, this one is close to somebody in State House, this one is close to a given politicians. These are human beings. Now that we have them, we must give them opportunity. We must give them the moral support, even as we are having a keen look at them. That does not mean that sometimes things may not go wrong. But I also think they have to work with Kenyans. They have to communicate. Like now, some of the things that we have been witnessing as far as issues to do with violence are concerned. It is my personal opinion that IEBC has not done enough to deal with these matters to do with violence, because they have the powers. Ayub, when 2 people die in Kasipul and it is life as usual, when we are witnessing such kind of monumental levels of violence, and we assume and we move on as though it is the order of the day, then where are we moving to, even as 2027 is drawing nigher? Why am I saying this? IEBC has all the powers, including the powers. Within their powers, they might have decided, no, the 2 candidates who were involved, they stopped them from participating in the elections. So that many who have said that IEBC is toothless, at least they have to bite. Even if they don't bite too much, but to some extent they have to be seen, because they are the referee. Look, one of the reasons why we are having a lot of violence in this, because in these particular by-elections, there is no room of going to court. Whoever might try to move to court, remember, we are having 2 years, 2 elections. So if somebody moves to court, let's say by December, it will take some 6 months, 1 year for the ruling to be made. Then you move to, your opponent moves to Court of Appeal, moves to Supreme Court. By the time the case is settled, we are here into another elections. And as per the Constitution, we cannot have by-elections when it is 1 year to the general elections. So this tells you that it is a matter of life and death. And that is why those who are getting into this must make sure that they get it right. And so I think the honors is with the commission, that they have to prove to the country. And I said earlier that these by-elections that we are having are more important to the leaders, but allow me also to add that it is equally important and of great significance to IEBC, if at all they are going to show Kenyans that they are capable of managing the general elections, because it is like halftime. Where they have to see how are they able to get things right, at least for the sake of the country. We know that there will be a lot of interference, interferences by the political class, but that does not stop them from doing the right thing. Sometimes you will have to do the right things, even if it may not be popular, but for the sake of the country, Ayub.
Okay.
All right. So
we'll proceed.
We will continue the conversation,
no problem.
But we just want to bring you up to speed.
Yeah, because you'll also comment on this,
Yes, incidents of chaos that have been witnessed during today's by-elections and on the eve of the electoral contest in various parts of the country. From vehicles set ablaze, aspirants attacked, and voters engaging in brawls, the by-elections in some highly contested electoral units started on a chaotic note. Take a look.
Even before the polls opened, the tension that has been rising in the highly contested Malava by-election boiled over with acts of violence. A vehicle belonging to one of the contenders was vandalized at a local hotel. That violence escalated in the morning with yet another vehicle set ablaze as security was beefed as voting got underway in various polling stations. A Toyota Prado allegedly belonging to Eugene Wamalwa was set ablaze by unknown people who were said to have been in the company of a local member of parliament at Manyonji in Butali, Malava.
Na mambo yenye tumefanyia leo hata si hatujafurahia hata kidogo. Wenzetu tulikuwa natoka nyumbani kuja kupiga kura. Tukidhani ni kura ya amani. Kumbe ilikuwa kura ya vita. According to eyewitnesses, 2 groups met along the Butali Factory Road while traversing the constituency, and a group armed with batons descended on the Prado and set it ablaze.
Magari more than 10 na wamekuja na mampini na bunduki. Mipini, mapunduki. Sasa katika harakati na Eugene Wamalwa walikuwa wamesimama kwa barabara. Hao walisuka tu na kuanza kupiga watu nini na
Mbeere constituency was also the setting for a confrontation between former Attorney General Justin Muturi and Chinga Ward MCA Kiruga Thuku. The two came to near blows at Siakago Social Hall polling station amidst voter bribery allegations.
In Mbeere constituency, they are very small people. We would have fought them back.
In Kasipul, MP for Homa Bay Peter Kaluma and his bodyguard were attacked at Agorosare Primary. The bodyguard's gun is missing. In Magarini, Kilifi South, Member of Parliament Ken Chonga was chased away by angry DCP supporters at Kanagoni polling station in Magarini constituency on suspicion that he was bribing voters there.
Hiyo serikali yote kwamba wananchi wameamua, raundi hamtapanga watu, hamtauzia jamii woga, hatutaki uongozi mbaya. No one can compromise with this election. Juu wananchi wameamua.
Kila wanachopanga tunakijua, tunatubua. Leo tumemtubua, ameenda Kanagoni na huko pia atatibuliwa. Tumejipanga na hatutaki kupumbavu.
Similar scenes were witnessed at the Tindereti polling station in Nyansiongo ward in Nyamira. Early voting at the station was disrupted after goons invaded it armed with machetes and clubs. They attacked voters, injuring some of them in the ensuing melee. Order was restored and voting resumed later in the morning. In the Mumbuni North Ward by-election, fracas ensued when former MCA Paul Museku was roughed up by angry constituents who accused him of bribery. The former MCA has been asked to report the attack to law enforcement. Voting resumed after order was restored. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Brenda, with that assessment of what happened during the day and how events had happened across the units, 59 minutes now before polling closes on this day, and about 55 seconds thereabout.
You have a sharp eye.
Very. They must say about 15, 16 meters from here. Yeah.
We are joined, or we have had in studio for the last few minutes, Frederick Ongweno, who is CEO, People's Bench, political commentator. So let me ask you this, right? So, however the IEBC came into office, because you were addressing that, the process, right, of selecting, appointing these commissioners and the political interference in the process. So you were saying that's why it's critical for them to deliver a credible poll to prove to the public that they can have confidence in their impartiality, in their independence, in the very credibility of the polls. You know, and you're saying it's not, given what we have already witnessed, you feel that they should have taken stronger stunner action against, to tamp down or to caution against violence where these polls are concerned. So this is not just about, I'm trying to understand the sentiments you shared earlier. This is not just about saying we've held an election. The election must be perceived, I guess that's the key word, to have been free, fair, and credible.
Yes, because if they cannot be trusted by little things and smaller things, how can we trust them with the general elections? You know, so they have to prove it to us that they are able to manage the smaller things, such as what now we are having now, because the general elections, what we are likely to have in 2027, you know, is far much more and bigger than what we are having now. But also, it is not lost on us. During the process of having them, at one point, we were able to see Kalonzo Musyoka, you know, coming in public together with other opposition leaders, saying that the process wasn't transparent enough. To some extent, they even threatened to form a people's IEBC, which we are still waiting and to see. So that tells you that we might have started on a left foot, but all is not lost, because at least we had to have an IEBC in office. And we were not going to have these people or borrow them from the moon. They were going to be our brothers and sisters here in Kenya. Now that we have them, it is upon them to prove to the country that they have the necessary capability, you know, they have the necessary requirement and what it will take to deliver to the country credible elections. Remember, in the last 3 or 4 elections, we've been having cases ending up in Supreme Court. There is a very likely or a huge possibility that even this one might head there. But even before it head there, are we able to conduct an elections without people crying that the servers have to be opened? Can they do it for once and for all, that the servers will just open themselves, so that they do not have to be compelled through a court order from Supreme Court for them to open the servers? Can they do it in a transparent manner that we are able to see the servers even without them being opened? We're already having a conversation, Olive. You've seen what has been happening this week. Some people saying that we should abolish the National Tallying Center, although I leave that to the lawyers. Yeah. But that tells you that there is a lot of mistrust in the country, and it is not good for our country that people do not believe that IEBC, the way we have it, they can do something. But remember when Isaac Hassan team came in 2010, after the promulgation of the new constitution, they did the first, we were having some by-elections that they conducted. But they used that opportunity. I think there was also a referendum.
Yeah, the 2010 referendum.
Yes, the 2010 referendum that was conducted by the interim, you know, independent. Yes. Yeah. That gave them time, you know, the Isaac Hassan-led team, to move with Kenyans and restore the public confidence to some extent, because we were just coming from the aftermath of the 200
violence.
Violence that was not very good. But the problem with us, there is an Ethiopian writer who wrote some book, and she says that the problem with we Africans is always pretending that we are forgotten, even when we don't forget. It is not lost in us that every election period, electioneering period, we have to lose people. People have to die. People have to shed blood. We have to see people on the streets. Can we get it right? So that
can I ask you something on that? We had the monumental protests in June of 2024 over the finance bill, and on the agenda were several items, but basically a reform, a cleaning up of our political culture. But in the run-up to these polls, and even the first half of the day, okay, almost it's approaching the conclusion.
Yes.
But for the better part of the day, what we're witnessing is a stained, spotted, political culture. Did it really shift anything in your view, given what we have witnessed?
It shifted a great deal at that time, but it seems like we are drifting back at a lightning speed to our bad manners of politics, the way they were. It's like we have really reversed the gains that the Gen Z got us, because for the first time we were able to see President saying that I surrender. That he was saying that because the power belonged to the people compelled him to dismantle his cabinet, to abandon the finance bill then. So it was a moment that the young people came to show us the power belonged to the people and sovereignty. But how I wish that there are some lessons that we learned from that. But if you look at the way things are, it tells you that we might have not learned a lot, because like I said in some station earlier in the morning, if you look at the turnout, you don't see the Gen Zs outside there, taking to their big numbers to vote, even just taking registering as voters. It tells you that a lot has to be done to move with these young people, because to some extent they are feeling that the older guards have already taken the country hostage. And that is why it pains me when we refer to that story of 125 people, richer than 42.6 million people. I mean, just a bus full of Kenyans. You just take these rich people and you put them in some bus, and they just walk around. They are walking with your future. And so young people are saying that what is it that will make us take to the ballot? So even as we are having this conversation, I think we had a very good opportunity to look back and say that what is it that we have to fix? But when we are seeing voter bribery in a manner that we are seeing them, when we are seeing these young people, I mean these politicians taking advantage of the young people, and Olive, there is why this crop of leaders would not want to get people out of poverty. Because if young people get employment, where will they find the goons to throw for them stones? Look, there are goons everywhere. In every elections, almost every constituency, there are goons. These are people who are educated. These are Gen Zs who have gone to school, but they have been forced to do this. And that is why they would not want these people to get out of this. But let me tell you, the goons they are using will be for their own disadvantage at some point. Because now they will turn to eat the same leaders who are bringing them, if at all we did not learn any lesson from the Gen Z protests.
Yeah, and how problematic has it been? And in your view, how can this culture be ended or put to a stop, given that even the constitution of the current commission took some time? We had the Bomber sittings that gave way to it, but the commission left office in 2023. Entire year there was nothing that happened. In 2024, the haggling over the composition of the commission, and then finally in 2025. Ideally, how should this political culture come to an end, and is it not a perpetual menace that it continues to have an effect on how the operations of the commission will be?
I think as long as we are having more poor people than the rich, the poor will always be forced to come and kneel and worship the rich. And that is why we must have a candid conversation. Ayub, there is no one pattern or one formula of changing this. We must come to a point of realization as a country that we want to have a country. Because right now you ask yourself, do you have a country? Jobs are advertised, but people are just being taken around. You know, if you even waste your time going for those jobs in government offices, before even they are advertised, people have already been shortlisting as is already been done. So we must come to a conclusion that we need to have a country, or we just want to have groups of tribesmen, you know, and women that are living in some place by the name Kenya. If we want to move this country forward, there are some painful sacrifices that we have to make. It was a very good thing when the Gen Z came out and they were saying that we are tribeless, that we are leaderless, that we are partyless. But somehow the political class managed to manipulate them that now they are almost radarless. It's very unfortunate that these young people who were so determined to change the course of our country, you don't now hear them in the national discourse of our country. But it used to be said for a very long time that the unemployment in our country is a time bomb. Ayub, we might have lost a very good opportunity, because next time it might be spontaneous like it was. We may not be able to come out of it. The other time we were lucky because the Right Honorable Raila Odinga was there. You know, there are somebody, at least when things were tough, you could bring him on the table, whether you say he betrayed you or not, but at least he could balance the equilibrium. Right now, if the young people get to the street, it will not because they want to champion for electoral rights. Sometimes they are so poor that somebody will just want a kilo of unga to take home. You saw what happened in Tanzania when Jacob Zuma was imprisoned. They were taking to the street, and some of them were stealing even coffins because they were not able to bury their loved ones. So that is how bad it is. And the political class that are listening to us, and they have been listening, we must come to a situation where we say, do we want to fix this country? Why would you have, Ayub, 10 billion in your account? What for? When people are poor, if anything, we have not seen anybody who has been buried, even with the 2 billion. Imeweka tu ile sasa, inasema wacha tu nione venye naenda na hii. You know, but the responsibility stops with the leaders. And that is why you see people are not very much enthusiastic to take to the ballots, because they see that even if they take to the ballots, it makes no difference. In the morning, I was seeing in one of the constituencies, I think is at the coast, where a sick woman was taken to hospital. I mean,
Magarini.
Yes, Magarini, to go and vote. You look at such kind of high level of patriotism. But is it reciprocated by the political class? Is it reciprocated by the executive arm of government? When you see Professor Kindiki, when you see Speaker of National Assembly going to campaign using state resources, because when they are there, they have bodyguards. They are spending in some high-end hotels, wherever they are. You know, and we have to tell them, when Speaker is there, he has not told us that he's not there in his capacity as a Speaker. And that is why in the Constitution, we never wanted state officers to hold political positions, you know, so that they could leave it to others to do that. When you are there, your car, you know, a fuel guzzler is being fueled by public resources. What are you telling these young people? And here you are telling the same people that come and vote, we are going to change your lives. Oh, they are saying that you are not going to change your life. You are going to maintain it among the billionaires club. And this is why we must have this conversation. Because if we don't have it, we might reach a point of no return.
And Frederick, the measure of reciprocity you talked about is certainly not forthcoming from the political establishment. There has been the willy-nilly abusal of power and constitutional violations. But one thing, despite the poverty rates in our country, is that the power of the vote cannot be taken away from the people. How then can they converge around ending the oligarchy by the 125 people, one, in voting for progressive Kenyans who present themselves at the ballot, but they are often overlooked because they are unable to meet the demands of the people, ideally, handouts, and etc. The EACC was clear in the last elections that it provided a list of people it said cannot hold public office. That was overlooked. Where then do we draw the line? And the people should, in 2027, to overlook all these underlying factors and electing progressive personnel who can then thrive within the setup of our institutional, constitutional array of institutions that were born out of Katiba, because that certainly is available as a setup.
And if I can just piggyback on what Ayub is saying, you have, you know, when you interact with people and they tell you, no, ukivotia huyu una waste vote yako, you know?
6 piece.
So when people are going to the ballot, they're looking at the worst of two bad options. You know, who is the better of two bad options? I should put it that way. That culture, that sense. Sorry, I'm just piggybacking of what Ayub said. How do we change that?
Yeah, it is a question of who is the devil, at least with a shorter tail. That both of them are devils. But let me tell you, Ayub, a very good question. A time is going to come when these devils and these options are just going to wither off. It may not be now. I'm an optimistic. I'm very optimistic, you know. But again, we may not get rid of all these politicians and their kind of politics. Because, you know, for the longest time, our politics has been defined by deception. Our politics has been defined by betrayal since independence. You know, for the longest time, we've been able to witness this. But a time is coming, and it has now come. Like Christ told them that a time is coming, and it has now come when true worshippers will no longer worship in Jerusalem, but they will worship, you know, in the house of God. I dare say that a time is coming that even though the political class have taken us for a ride, they have taken the voter for a ride because they know that they will come with a huge amount of money that they have, and still they're able to buy their vote, you know. A time is coming. It may be in 7 to 10 years when this crop of political class, those that we have seen dominating the political arena for a very long time, they will have to, quit the scene. But also, just by age, you know, naturally. And that is why God fashioned it that way. Naturally, as the Gen Zs are, you know, turning into millennials or such kind of a thing, you know, the kind of, the caliber of politicians that we have been having will just be withering off. And when they are using them, like you see what was happening in Kasipul, I'm very sorry for Mheshimiwa Opondo Kaluma. over what happened to him. But again, it was, I dare say, Kaluma is a very good friend of mine, but I dare say that it was good to some extent that the stone landed on a leader and not an ordinary person, so that they feel what the ordinary people have been feeling. Take it, for example, that woman who went to vote in Magarini in the morning, very sick, and then if she was the one hit by that stone, how would it be? And so that they feel it. But I think that automatically, even if leaders do not do it deliberately, purposefully, planned in a sustained manner, automatically they'll just be swept away by age, by time, and how things are moving forward. So they may do it now, but even if they don't do it, even if we don't say that deliberately we want to get rid of our bad manners, time is going to force us to do so.
All right. And you know, I wonder, because you've raised the issue of state officers campaigning. Vocal Africa has raised the same issue and several others, including, you know, blowing the whistle on the violence around these elections. But why on some of these issues must somebody go to court, an activist, let's say, for those who occupy these offices to know that this is wrong? This sense of impunity within the political class, because you expect the electorate to uphold the law, but it doesn't cut both ways.
Yes. Again, impunity is too inadequate to qualify how it looks again, because we have been seeing this time and again. Look at 2013. One of the issues, 2013, during the petition in Supreme Court, you know, one of the reasons or one of the grounds that were presented before the court was the issue of misuse of state resources, you know, and the evidence was brought there. Every time we've been having this, you must hear issues to do with the use of state resources, and the courts have pronounced themselves on this. But deliberately again, and with all our madness, we want to do it. Now, human beings, we have a tendency that if we are not punished, then we would always want to do things. And whether it is sin in the Bible, you know, and that is why God brought punishment. Whether
or
it is
the Quran.
Yes, or the Quran. Thank you. Whether it is your kid that does something and you fail to punish them, because sometimes you punish not because you hate the doer of the evil, but because it's out of love. So when politicians do this kind of things and they get away with them, you know, they tend to repeat them. Look, today we were witnessing our very good friend, or rather my good friend, the former Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi. You saw him in some kind of scuffle there, you know, altercation. He's a human being, he can lose his cool. I mean, he's cool. But you remember what we saw when the current CS, Alice Wahome, did. It was
2017.
In 2000, thank you, my brother. You saw what she did, but because she belonged to the right camp politically, she was able to get away with that. You know, she roughed up an IEBC official, but now she is a cabinet secretary. If it was a country that respects the rule of law, then definitely she would not be there. Now, look, when we manipulated Chapter 6 and our leaders deliberately again manipulated, mutilated Chapter 6 of our Constitution that allowed them to get away with some of these things that they have done, when they said that until you are proven guilty, that even if you are charged in a court of law, you know, with corruption, with all these scandals, with all these dirty things that they are doing, you still have to be cleared by IEBC. And that is why I think even EACC must convince us why we need to keep on sustaining them in terms of salaries and the budget that we are giving them. Because if they are able to get some of the characters, you know, that we are seeing, Matiang'i, none other than Matiang'i, the former CS, you know, in the run-up to 2022 elections, wonders.
You talked about Wash Wash?
Yes. He talked about it. And remember, he was also a consumer of raw intelligence, you know. And look at the crop of leaders that we are having in that National Assembly. These are the people who costed the lives of the Gen Z, because these young people were speaking, telling them that this thing is bad, but they could not listen. They are telling the president, oh, it is good. Long live Mr. President. Long live the king. Then after the Gen Z had brought this thing down, you saw them the following day, they're in State House. And when the president says that they were clapping beyond loudly. Now they are saying, and then the president was like, you people, you mean this thing was that bad? You know, such are the people that we are having. None other than the former CS, my good friend Moses Kuria, once said about issues of bribing members of parliament with 10,000 inside washrooms. You know, it is not me saying. He said it. And so we must deliberately again come, bring everything to a standstill, then say what kind of a country do we need to have, because I think it's just a madness.
Okay, and Fred, if we then have to...
Do you mind if I just catch people up on this, what's happened in the Senate, and then we'll continue with that line of questioning.
This is regarding the Nyamira impeachment?
Yes, and the fact that there will be a special sitting to address the matter in the Senate on December 3rd and 4th. I just want to read that out to you again. And the Senate has resolved to probe the impeachment of Nyamira Governor Amos Nyaribo in plenary sessions scheduled for the 3rd and the 4th of December 2025. On Thursday, the Senate convened to consider the charges against Governor Nyaribo, a motion seeking by the majority leader in the Senate and also the Kericho Senator, Aaron Cheruiyot, seeking to establish a special 11-member committee to handle the case, failed to garner the required support during a special sitting held this afternoon. The latest development comes just a day after the Nyamira County Assembly impeached the governor, with 23 out of 31 MCAs voting in favor of the motion.
The Speaker of the County Assembly of Nyamira informed the Speaker of the Senate of the approval of the motion by the County Assembly and further forwarded the Speaker, the Senate, the documents, evidence, proceeding of the Assembly. And whereas, pursuant to Section 33(3)(b), the County Governments Act, and 2012, the Standing Order 81(b)(1) of the Senate by resolution may appoint a special committee comprising 11 of its members to investigate this matter. Now, therefore, pursuant to Section 33(3)(b) the County Governments Act and Standing Order 81(b), the Senate resolves to proceed on this matter by establishment of the special committee to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of Honorable Amos Nyaribo, Governor of Nyamira. So, Speaker, you know this drill, and therefore the 11 members are...
So, after the motion failed to get a seconder, the motion has been withdrawn. And Honorable Senators, as you may have noticed, the Senate Majority Leader moved the motion at order number 8 on today's order paper for the establishment of a special committee to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of Honorable Amos Kimomi Nyaribo, Governor of Nyamira County. The motion failed to be seconded and therefore deemed to have been withdrawn pursuant to Standing Order 71 of the Senate Standing Orders. Honorable Senators, as I had communicated earlier by way of message on the resolution of the Nyamira County Assembly made on the 25th of November 2025 for the removal from office by impeachment of Honorable Amos Kimomi Nyaribo, Governor of Nyamira County, Section 33(3)(a) of the County Government Act and Standing Order 81(b) of the Senate, providing that the Senate may, 1, by resolution, appoint a special committee comprising 11 of its members to investigate the matter, or 2, investigate the matter in plenary.
All right, there you have it. The
33 minutes before polling closes.
Coming out of the Senate.
2 seconds.
So you're keeping a keen eye on the clock.
Yep.
All right, and
very important.
If you're just joining us, we have in studio Frederick Ogweno, who is a political commentator, CEO, People's Bench. I cut you short. You had a line of questioning you wanted to pursue.
Yes. Fred, Parliament stands impeached socially by the people. If we are to look at what happened on June 25th last year, what then happens next? Because what you pointed out on the 26th of June, 2024, the Parliament turning out to be the vocal cheerleadership of the executive, and appreciating the invested constitutional powers in it. One, that it can impeach a sitting president, and second, it holds the key to our past that it does budgetary allocations. It certainly, there is a gross failure on its part. But isn't it also a commensurate problem, given that the
Your
people...
guests in the morning may not be too happy to hear that.
They will be coming on the show. Isn't it then, Fred, that we're also having a commensurate problem on the part of the public, that they fail to appreciate that the membership of Parliament, the current and the previous ones, have failed to prioritize public interest issues. And when warned at the ballot, they keep on recycling people with questionable integrity and who are not progressives. What then should happen first, ideally, in 2027? Second, will then the young voters vote help at the ballot? Because being on the cusp of transformation, minus Odinga first presidential election, how will then the tide turn out? And three, whatever the outcome, the president and the current old guard politically, who are all politically manufactured by KANU, do they represent the last phase of the old guard? And will 2027 certainly hold that point if young Kenyans will come out to vote?
Thank you. You took my words. Indeed, they represent the last phase of the old guards. That is to answer your question. Again, I think the Gen Z will have an impact in these elections, but it won't be such a huge impact until 2027, because when they came that they were leaderless, when they came that they were partyless and all those things, to some extent they have now retreated back to their political cocoons. I dare say this because you look at the kind of conversation that they are having online. Look at the kind of, they are the #1 defenders of these old guards, and how I wish that we had one of them here. They are the #1 defenders. The Gen Z from Kalenjins are the #1 defenders of William Ruto. You dare say anything good about him, they will come for you online.
Bad, yeah.
The Gen Z from Kikuyu have retreated back and they are thinking like typical Kikuyus. And so are the Gen Z from Luoland. And so are the Gen Zs from Kisiland. And so are the Gen Zs from Mombasa, from Luya. They are thinking as typical Luya Gen Z. And I think it is not because they love it, but because they have been forced to do so. But a time is going to come when they are going to realize that their numbers will count not only on the streets like it did, but it is going to bring, not just to be counted, it is going to bring a huge impact also on the ballots. How I wish that right now we were having hashtag from the streets to the ballot, mobilizing these people, the people where we are having the by-elections to go and vote. But you see, to some extent, they have lost the radar that they were having, which is understandable because, you know, it's not something that they could sustain, but also it's also something that naturally was going to be attractive to the political class. So infiltration was going to take place. But let me tell you, we are going to have two things happen in the ballot in regards to the Gen Z in 2027. Number one, politicians are going to make sure that either they vote for you or they don't vote. Now, those who are in authority, who may not be friends of the Gen Z, might do this by ensuring, number one, that they don't have the voting cards. I mean, the IDs, you know, the identity cards. If they have, when we will be doing the mass voter registration, that is why you will be able to see the skewed manner in which even those kits have been distributed. And on the day of voting, and this is why we are saying that IEBC must learn from the previous mistake, whereby you've gone to vote at State House Primary School, and then you are being told that your name Iko Kilimani Primary School. You know, such kind of mistakes that we've had in the past. But I think that, back to your questions, in regards to the absence of the former Prime Minister, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, and what his impact could have been in this, I think to a larger extent, I said in this said some days back that Raila Odinga will be missed by 3 caliber of people. Number one of those who will miss Raila Odinga are his ardent supporters, those who loved him, those to whom his word was like law. Then number 2 is the political class, those who rose to the ranks, you know, through the ranks to become what they are because of his influence. Then the number 3 cadre of people who are going to miss Raila, and they will miss him so much, more than even those who supported him, are his enemies, his political enemies. You know, they are finding it hard because they used Raila as a bogeyman, as a punching bag, that they pointed to people that, look, this is the person why we are not getting what and what. And that is why to those who hated him, will hate him to his grave. Those who hated Raila. Even now, remember when we were at Addis with the olive here, you know, some people in some quarters were saying that, Raila, you should not win this thing, you know. And now he says, why do you want to go to AU? Then he came back. Then they say that, why would you want to join hands in a broad-based government? But now they still hated him. Even now that he's died, they are saying, no, you were not to die. Why were you dying? And remember his enemies, because they needed him to punch, you know, every now and again. That is why William Ruto is also a very shrewd politician. Look, to some extent, he has disarmed the opposition, because he has left them almost with nothing to show to the people. When we were having cases of abduction every day, they were the order of the day, you no longer see them, you know, because it was a tool that the opposition was going to use. Right now, taking people back to the streets, you really have to be genius, because you have to coil something around economics. It has to be the battle of the economy. You have to convince them something beyond SHA is not working. You must convince them that they are not having money because of President William Ruto, which may not be very easy. And so you must find something that is going to drive people. If you are coming from Mount Kenya, because now Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga is not there, you must reinvent something. You must reinvent a devil, you know, and probably with a longer tail than that of Raila Odinga politically, you know, in quotes. You must reinvent that. And if you are coming from Nyanza, you must give these people a reason why they have to get out of the government that they are now working closely with. And so that is why where we are headed to, things may not be very predictable, depending with how the political class are playing their cards. But what is important at the end of the day is that mother, who was promised by the same politicians, you know, if at all, like in Kasipul, where Ongondo died, where we're having these by-elections, that they were going to bring to them water to their doorsteps, that they were going to bring electricity. Right now, where there is electricity, that electricity can decide to, there's a blackout, you know, even for a whole week. You know, you'd wonder, stima ilienda safari gani jairudi. You know, these are some of the things that we have to fix. There are things that go beyond giving 25,000 for young people to go and start business. You know, there are things that go beyond sweet things and sweet words, sweet political, you know, rhetorics that we want to hear. Because, you know, it is only a liar who does not go on leave. Because if he goes on leave, then the truth might sneak. And by the time he comes, he realizes that this truth has already occupied the seat of the lies that he propagated. And so politicians from both national level, even to the county level, must now come to the realization that gone are the days when they took the voters for granted. But again, you were asking the position of the ordinary voter in this. Should we blame them? I don't think that we are going to shift the blame to the victim. But we may not blame them to some extent, because these people have been suffocated. Look, what is happening, you see that kind of level of bribery. But we try to secure these things using our laws. Now, even if I come here and talk to the people, you tell them good things. Whoever is going is having kids, mtoto wake hajasoma, January, you know, kids are reporting back to school. You are having 3 kids. You don't know. You are being told that government has reduced the capitation fees. You know, now you have to dig deep into your pockets. To them, you may not blame them to a larger extent, as much as they also bear some responsibility to some extent. But the reason we elect leaders and they come with those good manifestos, when they tell us that they are going to make this country look like heaven, then we vote them. Then we give them the mandate. That is why we are paying taxes. You know, we give them our taxes to use to change our lives. If they are not going to do that, then they are shifting back, you know, the burden to us, because we cannot all of us fit in that parliament. That is why we give them the responsibility. We do not elect them to come and remind us that they are in broad-based. We do not elect them to come and remind us that Ruto is bad. If he is bad, we know and we are also seeing. We do not elect them to come and tell us what their opponents have not done. Okay. We elect them to perform what is expected of them by the Constitution. And that is why we don't just elect them. We give them resources to do and perform the duties.
And there has been gross failure in that regard, isn't it?
I found it interesting. The last anniversary of the Constitution, this in August this
15
year.
years.
And Raila Odinga, in his speech, and he made some statements that he said he was aware were not politically popular. So he addressed the issue of 47 counties, saying, honestly, in his view, too many for Kenya.
CDF.
He addressed the issue of CDF. And then he talked about the bit in the Constitution that we need to figure out on sovereignty of the people beyond the ballot box. What did you make of that speech? I thought that speech was very interesting.
In my view, apt, given his the socialist nature of our former Prime Minister, and who was ideologically apt in what he believed in, which included, of course, statecraft and diversity. And here he had an intention, believing that the sovereignty granted the public, Fred, coming on this, should extend beyond the ballot. For instance, some have defended what happened in Parliament on June 25th, 2024. The members of Parliament, at the expense of abusing that mandate of the people, ends at the ballot, ended up debating an issue that Kenyans said had contained punitive tax proposal. Please drop it.
And you know what it was, you see the people literally at your doorstep saying, shouting quite loudly that we do not want this. And those within the House saying, it's okay.
And
you
just
may
passed
not want it, but what are you going to do about it?
Whether you like it or not.
Yes.
I think Raila was a strong believer in devolution, and he wanted it to work. He wanted it to change the lives of the people. He was a good friend of mine and a mentor to me. We may not say some of these things in public, but he did his part. I might have not agreed with him when he says that we need now to bring with some regional, governments in addition to the devolved units that we are already having. But again, as an old man, there are some things maybe you might have seen that I wasn't able to see. But I think, and there is my humble opinion, Ayub and Olive, that if we are to implement devolution with the kind of massive resources that we are taking down to our counties, then we don't need any other cadre of call it regional or whichever name
I'm
that
going
we
to
might
ask you
give
to
it.
press pause.
Yes.
Kidogo tu.
No problem.
So that we can take a break. What does the clock say?
19 minutes. And 59 seconds now.
All right. Yeah. So we're going to come back. We're going to conclude your sentiments. But we do want to take a break so that we come back with the entire team as the polling stations now move towards closing time, which is 5 p.m. except for areas where the start was delayed, the start time being 6 a.m. So we take a break. But to stay with us, our special coverage of the by-elections 2025 will continue on the other side.